Hello, Tyler with Bardeen again here. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about data and how to connect and transform and send data from one step to another inside of Bardeen. So this is a pretty important idea for not just Bardeen, but any type of automation that you might be doing. Sending data, moving data, adjusting all that, really, really important part for any data. So it's really important to take a moment and actually understand how that happens inside of Bardeen. So to get started, just like usual, we're going to open up Bardeen. We're going to scroll down. In this case, we're going to start a blank canvas, and we're actually going to be building out part of a playbook, not necessarily for the playbook, but just to show you how to connect that data from one step to the other. So to get started, we're going to go to Google Sheets and get table from Google Sheet. Now I already have a table, Google Sheet that I'm using just for demonstration, and it's company list. There we go. Perfect. And then I'm going to play this just so that way we can get some of our data. Great. Now, the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our web search and get answers from web using AI. If you're not as familiar with this one, don't worry too much about this. This video is really just about the data connections and not necessarily about how to use AI. We do have some other videos that we can go over later on if you want to know more about that. So to get started, we are going to click on our prompt area here, and then we're going to select custom text. Now you'll see three different buttons here, and we're going to go over each of these here. So for the second one, get from previous action, this is the button that you'll use to send information from one to the other. So kind of as a very first step here, we're going to select that, click on our action one, and select company name. So in this situation, in our prompt, we are going to be sending our company name that we have from our Google Sheet into the prompt for our AI Google web search. But we might want to do something a little bit more complex than this. So we might want to build out like an actual full web search, and we might say something like, give me a short description of, and then we have our variable. So our prompt right now is give me a short description of company name. But what the prompt actually sees is give me a short description of Bardeen. Now we might want to make this a little bit more complex as well. We can also add additional variables here as well. So the next one we might add, just to give it some more context, we might say the website is, domain. They are located in location, so state, region. Great. So our prompt right now says, give me a short description of company name. The website is domain, and they are located in state, region. But in reality, what the prompt actually sees each time you run it, or for the one time that we run it, the one first row that we run, it would say, give me a short description of Bardeen. The website is bardeen.ai. They are located in United States. And that's a very quick and easy way that you can pass data back and forth. This is probably how you're going to be using it a vast majority of your time. But there are two other ways that are really important that I want to go over as well. So the next one is this AI generated text. So there may be some situations where you need to adjust or change or add a little bit of AI intelligence to a variable before you pass it in the final prompt. And this part gets a little bit more advanced. So if you get a little confused with it, it's okay. We're getting a little bit more complicated here. So as this example, I'm going to delete out my location. And we're going to imagine that in this scenario, I want it to always be a country. So in this case, it would be United States. But what if for the location, I only have Nashville, or I only have Chicago, or I only have Tennessee? But in reality, I want it to be a country always at the very end. one of the things that I could do is click on my AI generated text, and now we're going to make a separate prompt to get a different type of information. So check this out. So I might say something like, return only the country of this location. And then I'm going to pass in my state and region. Now, in a situation where we have United States or we have the name of a country, this one would be super easy. There's not that much that would change here. But if we have one like the scenario I mentioned before, which is the state or city or some other form of location, the output of this will be the country instead of that. So it'll change it using AI before we move on to the next step. So to add this, we're just going to click our close. And you can see now my last box here, my last variable here, has actually changed to the little sparkly star thing. So this is our AI icon here. And then these are our traditional variables that we're sending back to, from our Google Sheet, that is. So this is a basic and a little bit more complex way that we might be sending data from one step to the other. There is one last one that I want to show you as well. So let's back out a bunch of these here. So we might say, there we go. So instead of us actually getting our information from Google Sheet, there are some playbooks that you might make, and you might say, well, I don't want to run through a Google Sheet, but I want to give a playbook to my SDRs or BDRs, so that way, if they want to do research about a company, they can really, really easily do that just by typing in the name of the company. Awesome, Bardeen can do that. It's really easy. So we would just go through and say, same prompt as before, and say, give me a short description of, but instead of passing through a variable that we already have, we want to click on Ask Me Every Time. And this one, we're going to call it company name. Save. And what this is going to do is it's going to have an input box that we'll see in just a second. And anytime that you run this playbook, it's going to require you to input something into that box. Once you do, it will then continue, put this into the prompt, run the automation, and continue everything as normal. Let me show you. I think it'll be a little easier to see it. So we're going to go save and run, manual. In this case, we're just going to save it real quick. Great. So now that that's saved, we're going to actually run our playbook here. And you can see real quick, it looks a little bit different than you would normally. So our step one is already run, but in this case, we're not really using it. But for our step two, you can see the variable that we named previously of company name. Now it's asking for me, the user, to actually put in this variable right at the beginning. So we might say something like Bardeen. There we go. And then continue. And then we give it a moment. And just as it did previously, it's going to go do our, yeah, there we go, Bardeen AI. It's going to go through and do its research and actually return that information to me. So that's a little bit about how you can send data back and forth inside of Bardeen. Hope that helps. Thank you.